Two-person show.
We
Live.
shall see if we are.
Right.
That actually is.
Where's the clicker?
I've got it. They don't read the paper, they don't.
But all this, everything comes off of social media, right?
Well, I don't have
No.
social media. I do.
For some
I
people
do
it
hear
does.
about
You're
social
better
media.
off. It looks good on the camera.
Oh, yeah.
That way people can see, I mean, they don't need to see us so much.
They do not.
Right. No,
It's
they
better if
don't.
they can see
Oh,
this.
I'm happy with the voiceover.
It's not bad.
Okay, you can be voiceover.
Okay, well, we'll go. Well, that's gonna be working is up here.
This one. We'll take
So
turns.
there's now, if we have all the other ones turned on, then they're all gonna start picking up feedback and
Right.
not worth it. So,
Perfect.
so if you're gonna speak
Speak into it.
into that or speak loud, because I got a big
If
voice.
we have questions from the audience, repeat the questions into the.
Yep, and we'll
microphone.
repeat your questions into the microphone. You're not on camera, so you're safe. The massive crowds that are here are safe from being exposed.
Well,
My wife says, would you keep your mouth shut?
Well, all right, then I guess I'll get started.
Great.
I am Gail Grimm, and I am the current director of Comanche Public Library. And thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Today, we just would like to inform the citizens of Comanche about what we're proposing might be able to happen down at the library. So, a while back, the library was in need of some things, and so they did a needs assessment. A committee was formed, and then they brought those needs to an architect to develop something that might help solve those problems. So what you see on your screen are some of the names involved there and people who worked on it. Everything has been driven by our mission statement, which you can read there. All of everything we do is driven by that, but certainly as we talk about improving the space. So we asked the architects to keep these things in mind as they drew up some plans for us. So we talked about stewardship and all the learning that goes on at the library, how it should serve our community to bring us together, the security that we need. A little faster on the button.
Yeah. I got you.
And using sustainable products and making it a sustainable space so that it can serve our future, making it energy efficient and keeping the identity of the place we love so much, keeping up with the technology needs of today and into the future, hopefully, and of course, the beautiful, lovely site that it sits on. Dave's going to talk about the history of the
so
building.
let's talk about the history of the building very briefly. This is a single-family residence, was constructed in 1943. It's a single story and it's got a steel frame with a brick exterior. The steel frame is going to become important later on in our discussion. Of course, the library is not sitting on those beautiful grounds Gail mentioned, and we have that nice dock out there where people can go fishing and whatnot. The Depew family donated the building to the city for the purpose of creating a library, and it opened as a library in May of 1965. In 1996, we did an addition to the library over there, kind of to the north a little bit, trying to picture the direction, northwest. We did, or northeast, excuse me, added 5,900 square feet on a concrete slab and added 4 ventilation units up on the roof. There is a basement. The existing layout includes 1 office, 1 toddler area, storage area, an eating nook, a kitchen/storage space, 2 restrooms, one of which is kind of scary, and 2 closets and 1 large open area. When we get to the layout, I'm going to show you the existing layout really doesn't work even as it is. Go ahead. So there's some photographs of the building as it was way back in the day, that beautiful brick exterior. We did change out some of the windows from you see there. Now, this is the site plan as
Go
it,
back, I'll show them the windows.
yeah, so you look over here at the,
Sorry.
here we go.
There you go.
You look at that bottom right picture, you see the old windows have been replaced The new windows we have in there aren't that new anymore, and they need to be replaced as well. We'll talk about that in a
This
second.
is an excellent picture too of what it looks like on the side before they put that addition on.
Oh,
you
yeah,
see-
good point. Yeah.
Um,
Right there. That's where the addition is now.
Yep.
So if they hadn't done that addition in 1996, those images here are what you would see of the building.
Yep. All right, so go ahead, next slide, please. So let's talk about the existing site plan. So there's 7 stalls. There's 1 stall that's marked as handicap, but that stall is not ADA compliant. The parking lot is too steep, and so it doesn't really count as a handicap stall in the eyes of of code. We have a nice landscaping and butterfly garden, which is there. The dock is not ADA compliant either. It's too hard to get to, and the rail is not right. So that has to be fixed. Of course, we have the flagpole, and to the north and west, we have the depot and the caboose sitting on the property. So let's talk about some problems with the existing structure. And there's a few. The ones that are going to show up as highlighted are ones that have a more immediate need. So let's go ahead and go for those deficiencies. First off, insufficient parking. Have you been to the library? We said there are 7 stalls. How many times have you been to the library? There's more than 7 people in there. So people are parking in the street, they park down the street, they park around the corner, up your block, they park everywhere, but they can't park in the parking lot because there's no, hardly any room, and it's not really well configured. The pedestrian pathways aren't real safe. There's no dedicated outdoor activity space. You can go outside, but there's nothing out there where you can, designate to do some activities, a place to sit, a place where you can gather. And we talked about the ADA access to the river. It's just not there. So let's look at the next slide, look at some solutions we're proposing. We want to increase capacity for parking at least 4 times, improve pedestrian access. We want to provide some outdoor program and gathering spaces and enhance the connections to nature. So let's talk about the infrastructure. And there's a lot of yellow in the infrastructure. Talk about the building and its concerns. Security concerns with the property. It doesn't, and it's an unfortunate reality of our day and age. We need better security than we have. So we want to improve security. The ventilation system, I talk about those 4 units on the roof, they're limping. And at some point, they're going to have to be replaced. The roof itself is going to have to be replaced. The windows were replaced way back, but now they're outdated and they're inefficient. So they're not energy efficient windows. The ventilation, it says poor ventilation in basement. Have either of you been to the basement? Anybody been here, been into the basement of the library? The basement is not usable. It is not a habitable space. There's mold and we have mitigation going on, but it's not a usable space. And in addition, the only access is via a narrow, steep stairwell. So it's hazardous for the staff to use if they could use it. So it's not good. It says rigid stacks, not flexible there. So the stacks is, of course, is a library term for the bookshelves. They're called stacks in libraries. So that's how Gail knows them. And those stacks are, you've been in the library, you'll see they just sit there on the floor, which seems fine. But in any modern library, those are on wheels and you can move them around. You can make room to do things, here, we picture what this building would look like if you have a bunch of bookshelves, you can't move. How do you do anything else with that space? You can't. In addition, those stacks aren't ADA compliant. Per ADA, you have a range of elevation for those books. So someone in a wheelchair can reach them low or high. And we don't meet that because we just don't have the room. We have too many books, which is a great problem for a library, is have a lot of books, but it doesn't help us with other stacks. And then inadequate restrooms. We have one scary bathroom. The other bathroom is right next to where people, so picture if that door was a bathroom and we're having a meeting and someone goes in there to use it, all the acoustics. That happens at the library. Our one good bathroom is right next to where people gather for programs, and it would be nice if we could give people some privacy when they use the restroom. Let's go on to some solutions. So talk about, here's what we want to do. Want to improve security for staff and patrons. And one of the things we talk about security, there's a lot of folks in this town who don't have internet access, but they need to use the internet for various things. For example, doing their taxes. If you've been in there, you see those computers are just sitting out. There's 4 of them on a table right there. Anybody walking by can look down and see what you're doing in that computer. That's not very nice. You want people to have some privacy when they're using those computers. So, and that's security for the patrons. Security for the staff is physical security, like we have done here. Enhance the building entrance to make it better than it is. Improve the visibility from the circulation desk. Right now, the circulation clerk would have to leave her desk and go do this. You go if she's going to see what's going on in the children's area.
That doesn't make
It-
sense.
And that does include the toddler area, which is its own little room. So we want to fix that up. And it's part of the security would help with some cameras and stuff. Update the mechanicals. The ventilation system needs to be fixed up, getting the basement properly ventilated. Update the exterior siding and finish systems. One thing I want to point out, you'll see some pictures later on. We are retaining the look of the existing building with the brick and all that stuff. We want it. We like the look of the brick. We're going to retain that. The architect knows that. So we're going to enhance ADA accessibility, improve the restroom facilities, and of course, install some mobile stacks. Next thing, we're going to talk about programs. We have no community meeting space. And when we have meetings, if you've been there during a library board meeting, we all sit basically in the middle of the library. We put up tables and that's where the library board sits. And if there's a bunch of kids running around, they're running around. You know, and we have to work around that. So no community meeting space. And in addition, Gail, how many times have you been called and asked to use a meeting room for something important to somebody?
I get called and asked for a room about 3 times a week. There's different entities that would like to use a space. We'll talk about that as we go forward and see
Okay.
some pictures too.
So we have no space for community pantry. Right now, our community pantry is one bookshelf with some stuff in it. And that it's important because these pantries over here aren't open as often as the library is. So people who have a need could be coming to the library to pick up what they need, or they got to wait until that opens up. So we would like to have more space for community pantry. No study or meeting rooms. If you go to any modern, not even a large library, most modern libraries, you're going to find study rooms. So students can come in, and it's not like they're going into a little closed closet. There's glass there, but they have a place where they can close a door and they can have some study area. No individual teen area, no small children's space, and basically inadequate space for programs. If we have any kind of program in the library, you're doing it in the library proper. And so people who come in and want to get a book or whatever are now interrupting a program without meaning to, so they can go check a book out. That doesn't make any sense at all. So let's talk about how we're going to fix that. We want to add a community meeting space. We want to enlarge the program spaces, update our technology, expand the programs offered, including a music room, maker space, esports, provide a community pantry, and give the staff more efficient areas. All right, so these are just some photographs of the site as it sits today in the inside of the library. I don't know if you'd want to
Yeah,
talk about
okay,
these.
with this.
All right.
It's on the river. I live on the river.
Mhm.
So what's the status of floodwater?
The water table in 2019 caused some issues. The water table, when it came up so high, it normally doesn't, but it can seep water. But we have inadequate. That's not going to go away necessarily, but there's things they can do to mitigate some of that. There's no pumping, no gathering area in there, and there's no ventilation going on to get some of that moisture to escape any other way. So there has to be a lot done to resolve that issue. Yeah.
I mean, living on the river, 21 and a half feet, you know, we don't get floodwater, but we get groundwater.
Correct.
And I can't imagine that any structure along there, at 22 feet or 21 and a half feet, man, it's just not gonna get some.
It does get some seepage, and there are things we could do to mitigate that, but well, the problem is, and it doesn't normally get it. Really, the issue we had in 2019 was the length of time and how high the water table came up. It came up really high. That land is a little bit higher, I think, than where you're at. But it became a problem during that flood. Now, it doesn't happen so much in 2023, but we do think we can do something at least. But even proper ventilation and extra access spaces, really only having one means of egress out of that basement is not great. And they
We can't.
just to store junk.
But you're planning on.
Yes. Well, for storage, and you'll see that later.
So for those at home, the question had to do with whether we get water in the basement of the library during high river levels, and the answer is yes,
On occasion.
on occasion. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to point out that I took over the library as director in July. And so some of the pictures that you'll see are from a year or two ago, but some of them are from these last 8 months or so. And I just need you to understand that the library is a busy space. I think if you're not accustomed to going to the library, maybe you, your interests are elsewhere, you may think that the library is just a wide open, empty room, but it isn't. It's very busy. There's lots going on, and it's supposed to be. A community should rally together and learn, grow, create, gather at a library. And so that might be new to some people, but the truth is there is a great deal of people in this community that use it as such. And so you see here in these pictures, sometimes with children, maybe it's summer reading program, maybe it's just a craft that was happening after school. But let's go to the next one. You'll see this is after school program and homeschooling programs that we provide. Schools shuts down a couple hours early one day a week. Sometimes they're not in school because, like yesterday, there was no school. So we have events and things that they can come and do in their off time. And we try to keep it a learning environment, but also fun. And then we have other entities that use the library for the same types of reasons. They're coming to gather, they're coming to have community with one another, and they're coming to learn something, create, work on skills. And so we help with that. That's one of the services that we provide. These pictures are from our friends from Larch in Clinton. The adults use our library for informational programming. They might come for crafts. We have had a music series. We have had a travel series. We have 3 book clubs that meet at the library. You name it. We're about having the people come to the library to experience, getting together with one another. We have an adult game night coming up this Friday night. We're trying to meet several different needs and many different interests there. This slide shows the adult program. On the picture on the left shows a program that we had that was done by a great group of people in Clinton County people. And it was all about fraud awareness, and it was well attended. But if you can see in that picture, can you point to it? The restroom is there. If anyone needed to use it, there is not much confidentiality going on there. That's right. Additionally, though, our circulation desk is right there as well. And we did have a few patrons who came in that day to just check out books. Should they have needed to speak to one of the librarians about an issue of any kind, there would be no confidentiality there for that. The other picture is from one of our programs, Birds of Prey, the conservation people. Yeah. So they bring a lot of cool stuff to the library and share it with us. Now and again, a program is so well attended and is popular enough that we do have to go over to the community center to be able to hold all the people that are interested in going to that program. This is an example of that. To be honest, though, there is another problem here, because if we use the community center, it can't be used by someone else. That's number one. Number two, if this program was scheduled on a day when the community center was already booked, and that has happened to me 4 times now, we have to either reschedule it or, find other means. It's not easy. But the converse also happens. One time it was the special election time when the school had their special election, and the community center was used for voting, and the Girl Scouts needed to move their meeting to the library. So that then became an issue for us because of the program that we already had scheduled for that day there. There were now 30 people additionally in the library that we weren't expecting. So it is what it is. It just causes a domino effect. People may not be aware of that. Our outdoor space is, as you know, it's a lovely setting, but it's not always a good place to gather. Children are children. They're not going to stay in a space that doesn't have um, a designated use. And so when you just bring them out there and have to use the parking lot or the area under the trees or the area close to the road, or they're not going to worry too much about the safety of that. So then it becomes on us. And there's not a lot of staff. We get our friends of the library who help us to maintain these things, and we get other volunteers. But it's not ideal. If there were a space that was a designated, this is where we're holding programs, it is outdoors, but we can do that. It just helps define it for people. All right, so on to the meeting space. We don't currently have a meeting space, and often we have to turn people away. Good examples of that are when we have a small study group that wants a place to meet. We have tutors that would like to work with pupils there. We have compliance officers that call and expect us to have a space. Libraries are normally able to accommodate that. And other people, social workers and whatnot, they know this about libraries. Our library does not have a space that they can use. And if you're thinking back to, well, there used to be a space, yes, there did. But our children's area used to also be in the basement. That made, because it's unusable, we had to move it upstairs. And so that took the meeting space for any kind of small toddler children area. So we've got a little room there that used to be a meeting space, now designated toddler space. And I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures of toddler time, but it spills out into the entire library at this point. So that is just something that people in the public would expect a library to have that we do not have.
Okay, let me talk about the existing floor plan and our proposals. If you look at the picture here, onto the very far left is the addition, right there. Thank you. So there they are. Carol Merrill is showing us the addition to the library. The rest of it is essentially the pre-existing house that was constructed in 1943. And if you look over here, you'll see the storage area. If you, storage area right there. You have to go through the office to get to storage. So the director's office is a passageway to storage. You can see the one narrow stairwell that goes down into the basement, and there's not much. So again, this is a very cramped. We did our best to use this space as best we can, but it's very cramped. So in addition, we have some opportunities with the site. Let's talk about that very quickly. And you'll see this overhead shot. You want to talk about this?
I'll cover that. I dug it out because we're at City Hall, and that back table over there is the plans from 1971 to create Riverview Park. That's kind of where Main Street Park is, right over here. And you can look at those plans, and it was a beautiful plan in 1971. They never did it. Our plan is to revive that somewhat, connect Riverview Park to the park area, grass area in front of the library, and connect it down to the library dock. That we own the property in front of the residents next door. So we're able to do that and create an additional parking space and a nice little walking area to go from one park over to the library dock and then over to 12th.
All right, so here's some, this is a map of what the opportunity site presents. You look over to the first picture there that shows the train depot and caboose. The existing building is that crosshatched area. Proposed additions to the building are shown in the light green, or I guess that's what's called. The blue, yeah, that aqua blue. And then up above there, you'll see where the depot is now and the caboose. If we moved just the depot over to toward the street, towards Second Street, we could then add a bunch of parking spots and expand the library. Take up some of that grassy area with parking spots and add some of the additional parking we need. You'll see we've got plenty of parking now available. If we go to the next shot, where we moved both the caboose and the depot, we could off-site. We'd have lots more parking, and we'd definitely be able to accommodate all the parking, and people wouldn't have to park on the street anymore to go to the
But
library.
you do lose green space.
That is true. We do lose green space. So let's talk about there's two different concepts, and I'm going to talk about the difference. So the first one is concept study A. Oh, I'm missing a slide here, I think. No, I'm
It
not.
might be me. I didn't have.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, no, it's
Took
the
some stuff
actual,
out.
Okay,
you're fine.
all right. So again, keep in mind, this is the building, it would not be white. It'll be a brick building, but this is what the architects provided us. So there's the concept study A is a one-story structure. And looking at it from the river, you see we retain the turrets and, but we added some entrances going out toward the river in the building. And inside we've expanded. I'll show you that in a bit. There's a picture showing what the main entrance looks like. And from the entrance, you got that shot and then River North. So let's take a look at the overhead view and get a picture of how that goes. So you start with the existing structure. Now let's look at the addition. This is a single story proposal. If you look over in the far left, you'll see that very large structure going to the north and or top and bottom of the picture. At the top of the picture is stacks, program space, etc. At the bottom of the picture is a meeting room where we have a community meeting room. And I'll explain why we did it in just a second, but we also include spaces for a whole bunch of different options to add existing floor space. So this would basically, we'd have adding about 4,000 something over 4,700 square foot of space to the existing structure and using that for the meeting rooms and all those things we're talking about, we need to add. In addition, if you look up at the, right above the center of the existing structure in the new, we have an outdoor amphitheater and an outdoor seating area we've put out there, which can be covered. The second outdoor seating area can be covered. Now, the meeting room, what we want to do there is make something like community center. Has anybody used the community center recently or at all? So one of the things about the community center is you get a key card from staff when you reserve the community center. You go and you that's your card. You key card in, you have it, and then until the key card is deactivated, you can get in. You can get in 24 hours a day while that key card's active. Go in, use the community center, set it up for whatever you're in, clean it off, and you turn the key card. In this idea, we want to be able to do the same thing by making a community center we can use when the library's closed.
Yeah.
Question is, do we charge the community center? The answer is yes, of course.
And it gets rented a lot.
And yeah, there's a lot of use, as you point out. So I think this,
And in a lot of cases, that space is too large for their events even.
Yeah.
A smaller space like this would work much better for what a lot of people want to do.
so the idea here is you'd key card in while the library's closed. You can then get into the community center without accessing the rest of the library. So you can't, you can't badge in and your kids can run around the library and look at books all night long.
It's important that there's access to that space outside of library hours, but it's still then secluded from the library
Right.
function itself.
Right.
Are you planning on charging for that?
Yes.
Yes. So question was, are we planning on charging for this new community center, community meeting room? And the answer is yes. And then in this way, the library can become a revenue generator as well as a revenue user.
I think a lot of that would depend on what the library board wants to do too. Like, if there were a community group meeting there and the space wasn't being used, yes, go ahead. But if you're going to use it for an event, like a birthday party or something like that, then yes, there would probably be a charge
Right.
for that.
Yep.
But every regular day use, hey, we're going to have a small meeting over here, or one of the credit unions or the bank says, hey, yeah, we need to have a quick meeting. Can we use your space? Yeah, sure, go ahead. As long as it's not being used or rented by somebody else.
So here we're going to talk about costs. So
Oh, sure.
it's your turn.
Oh, my turn. Great. So concept A, the one-story project, estimated cost is $5 million. The hard costs are $3.7 million. Soft costs, which includes furnishings and computers and some other fees involved, adds up to 1.3 million. So overall, the estimate from the architect is about $5 million.
Is that today's cost or is that?
It's today's cost, but we're, using a real slowdown in inflation too, so we're not that concerned about it at this point. So the question is, how does it get funded? Where are we going to come up with $5 million? Well, the first important part of it is next year, the Washington Boulevard debt retires. That's a debt service fee on your taxes. That was a $4.2 million debt. that the city took out. That debt is going to fall off. That's $360,000 a year that the city pays from your property taxes to pay for that debt. So if you borrow $4.2 million again, you're paying your property taxes aren't going to change, and you have enough money to make the annual payments to pay back that debt. So your levy stays the same. That's the important part. You go grant funding. Low-hanging fruit for grant funding or library expansion is a CAT grant from Iowa Great Places. That's $500,000. You look for CCDA grant funding. You look for private donations. You need to come up with, between CCDA and there's other area grants to go after. And there's a group from ECIA. I just met with them today. They're like, hey, we'll help you look for more grants for your library project. So I'm okay. Thanks for letting me know. We're confident we can come up with the other $1 million to make up to get to that $5 million mark for concept study A. Comanche debt capacity, just so you know, is $21 million. That's the maximum legal amount we can borrow by state law. We currently have in general obligation debts about $3 million. We're only using about 19% of our debt capacity. So can we take on the debt? Absolutely. It's not a problem. So we have the ability to take that on.
And it won't increase.
It won't increase. The whole
Yeah.
point is it does not increase the levy.
All right, let's talk about concept study B. This is the one that's most popular with folks who've provided some votes. So this is the two-story option. So in concept study B, you can see the existing library in the top picture over here. The existing library is right in here. My hand in my
Yeah,
spot.
you're right.
That's the existing library right now. So that's the existing library, and you see the addition over there. We still have the stacks. When you look at the part over there to the where the current new addition is, but now it's instead of a single one-story structure, it's still a one-story, but now we've lofted it up, raised the roof, as it were, to let light in. So when that sunrise comes up, you're going to fill that room with sunlight, and people can read their books and sit and enjoy a beautiful sunny day in the coldest of weathers. The main entrance there, but you also see a second story on top of the main part of the structure, and this is where that steel frame comes in. The building was built with a steel frame, which means it can easily hold a second story on top of where it is. And that's great news for us because it makes it a lot less expensive than it would have been otherwise to make it a two-story building. Let's go ahead and look at the overview. So you start with the existing structure and then add on, this is what the two-story looks like. This is just the main level. So in the main level, you still have the stacks. Everything looks the same, kind of the same, except we don't have that meeting room going down toward the bottom of the picture anymore. The meeting room is somewhere else. But everything else looks the same in that stack. Again, we have the amphitheater, you have the outdoor area. But this one also includes an elevator so people can get to the second floor. And of course, the elevator is going to help us get into the basement. So, and in either case, we're going to be fixing our basement up so it becomes at least a habitable space.
The difference here between this proposal on the first floor and the other proposal on the first floor, and we can go back to it if you want, is these spaces that are dedicated are a lot less condensed. There's more freedom to move around and more space to do things for programs and for other things you have going on there. So we can go back to that again in a little bit. You'll see how compact the one-story concept is.
Yep. So now let's go ahead and see what that second story is going to look like. So this is now you have the lower level.
basement.
That's the basement. Then you have the first floor. And now you have the second floor. The second floor sits, if you look at the picture, most of the second floor sits on top of the existing building. And that's your community meeting room. And there'll be an outdoor area up there, balcony. Basically, you go out on the balcony, and that becomes, the balcony is also rain protection for the seating area at the first floor. When you walk out of the library toward the river, you have a seating area. You can sit outside. You'll be able to sit outside and do that. Sorry. So,
That overhang.
Oh, yeah, this is.
so there's a little overhang there. And so that'll become the place. Everybody,
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
you're in the right spot.
That right
over here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's the place where everybody's going to want to take their prom pictures. They're going to go on that balcony. You know what the view is out there. Picture you up on a balcony overlooking that river in a beautiful view, looking across, and a view across the river is never going to change. It's just gorgeous. And then we also have other meeting rooms upstairs, but the Upstairs, you have a kitchen area and bathrooms and so on. So people who rent the community room can come in, take the elevator up, and they have the kitchen, they have the room, restrooms, all available to them for community rooms. So the same concept, except now it's up on the second floor, and with we built an outdoor balcony up there that wraps around. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. And you have a lot larger and a lot more room in the library. So let's talk about what that looks like for cost.
So as you can imagine, it's a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more. The overall budget expense estimate for that is $7.167 million and some change. That's a lot more money. So the question is then, how do you get there? Well, you still have the same deal going on with the Washington Boulevard debt. You're coming up with 4.2 million that you're going to borrow money for, keeping the levy the same.
How many years is that? Is that
20.
20 years?
Yeah. When you're borrowing that much money, you put that on a 20-year debt, especially if you get really good interest rates. And one of the things people need to understand too is municipalities get a better interest rate than you do. Banks that loan us money don't have to pay income on the interest that they earn from us. So they pass those savings on to us. This building that you're sitting in now, we borrowed $600,000 at 1.5% interest. So we get really good rates. And we're not getting that good of rates now. That was back when interest rates were generally 3.5% to 4%. We got 1.5% for this building. It was a local bank who who lent us that money just to be locally involved. So we do get that kind of interest from other from area banks, but then also national banks too. We have a national bond rating of an A from Standard & Poor's. So we do get good interest rates on our debt because we're fiscally responsible here. So you still go about the great Iowa Great Places CAT grant for $500,000. Same CCDA funding you ask for, get private donations, but you need a lot more. In this case, if you want to go big, if you want to do the big project and have it be something that lasts you for the next 50 years, it's going to take a lot of philanthropy. And I don't think, in my personal opinion, I've been here for 8.5 years, that the city itself has done a great job of creating that environment of trust with the citizens, that if you give us a large gift for a project that we're going to do right by you. I think we're starting to turn that corner where people are recognizing that we're doing good projects and nice things are happening here. Nice things are capable here. Now let's give them the confidence to trust us with their gift that we're going to do a nice project. And that's where the philanthropy aspect comes in. We're also going to be asking corporations to step up. Some of the area corporations, we don't have a whole lot in Comanche. We have some great ones here, but there's a lot of great ones in Clinton. There's a lot of great ones in Eldridge. There's a lot of great ones down in the Quad Cities. And they are Comanche citizens that work in those places. And those places, we have not been great about going to them and asking them for donations for projects in our city where their employees live. So that's what we're going to do. Again, same thing with the debt capacity. Our general obligation debt is about 19%. We have other debts too, but they're up against road use funds or water funds or sewer funds. So those don't count against your property tax debt. Those aren't property taxes that you pay to pay back those debts. So there you go.
Right. If I can add one more thing. You notice we're asking the voters for the $4.2 million. And the question has come up in previous presentations, what if the voters say no? As I alluded to earlier, the library needs help. Whether we approve this expansion or not, the existing structure has problems. So
Yellow highlights. The yellow
yeah,
highlights.
all those yellow highlights have to be addressed. So the council, city council, me and the rest of the council would have to find whatever funding we can within the framework of the code to fix the library, at least update the structure so it's safe to use the basement. So the ventilation isn't limping along. So the roof gets replaced. So the windows get replaced and the security is updated. So all those things have to happen regardless. What we'd like to do is make all that part of an expansion project. So the library gets a real upgrade. The community gets the library it deserves in addition to just, on top of just a minimal library, there's a concept I've run across too many times since we started this from people, well, libraries are, A, libraries are dead, and B, libraries are just a place to get books. Neither of those is true. If you spend any time in our library, libraries aren't dead. And you go to any other library, go to DeWitt, go to any other municipality, look at their library, they're full of people all the time. Libraries are not dead, and libraries are much more than a place to get books. They're community meeting spaces. They are gathering spots. Larger libraries, you go to Bettendorf, they got a piano in it. People can go sit and play the piano if they want to do that. There's study rooms and all kinds of stuff. You can move those stacks around so you can use the room for other things. And that's the vision we have for our library going forward. Let's make something the community can use for the next 40 or 50 years and make it right. Let's do it right. And let's just not just fix what we have. Let's improve everything and give it to the community so the community has something it can have for a long, long time.
I'll-
Do you have an idea what percentage of library? I don't mean the number of
Sure.
people that go in and out of the
Mm.
library, but like, if we have a population
You're
of
right.
1,000. So
That's a good question.
do we know what percent of that population? I mean, Washington Boulevard, everybody uses.
Right,
Right.
sure.
Okay, so you can say that's 100% usage.
Mhm.
So do we know what that percent usage is?
So the question is, do we know what percentage of Comanche residents use the Comanche Public Library? And I will say that I hear from people all the time. One of my close personal friends said when she was in college, she used to come down to the Comanche Library, but she was from Clinton. She would come use the Comanche Library because it was an easier space to access and they actually had better internet at that time. But Gail, go ahead.
Okay, so exact numbers I cannot off the top of my head, but I will be presenting to the city council at the next meeting about how many patrons we have in our system, in our checkout system. That also is not a good indication of how many people use the library because plenty of people come to the library that don't have a card there. So it's very tricky to say without also including the number of people at each of our programs that we provide. So as far as the physical space being used, there's those two things you would have to ballpark. The other thing is there's an online version of our library, as all libraries have nowadays. And the usage of that would also have to be sort of included in all of that, in my opinion. But it is difficult to say. I could give you, we just ordered new library cards because we have 2,000 people with library cards. Now, some of them are not Comanche residents. Some of them are Clinton and DeWitt and anywhere in Iowa, even some from over across the river have library cards with us. So it's tricky to say exactly. Only the ones from out of state. They're $50 for a family, yes. Anybody in Iowa is allowed to have a library card in a library in Iowa for free.
What are the hours?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're open from 9 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening. And Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, we're open from 9 in the morning to 4 in the evening. And Saturdays, we're open 9 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, currently. That's also, hey, with growth and change, we're flexible. We'll be looking into that if we need to.
I'd like to add one part to that. What Gail just pointed out about how many people there are people from outside of Comanche that have library cards here that use our library. There are people out there that will say that the library doesn't draw people to your community. That's not true. That is 100% not true and not accurate. That's a made up thing in somebody's mind. The fact of the matter is we know how many people from outside this community have library cards at our library, and there's a significant number of them. An attraction like a library, a good functioning library, and the proposals that we're presenting to the public to consider is something that attracts people to your community. It's not just a place for books. It will be a place with expanded services. It will be a place for events if we get that to happen. It will be things that bring people here, and it's not just for that. And when they come here, they do other things. They go to the gas stations. If we get the Fairway, they go to the Fairway. They'll do things to create commerce here too. It's not just books.
You also mentioned the homeschool kids, which is fine. Do they, is that a significant number of people?
The question is about the homeschool group that uses the library. Currently, there's about 30 members in that group. It's growing also. Some folks have recently started coming from Clinton to the Comanche Public Library for the homeschool. And we just do something once a month. So
Do they have the opportunity to use the high school library?
not that I'm aware of. I don't know, though. Back in the day, when things just ramped up with COVID, I was the librarian over at the schools. And there were some things that they were allowed to use of, yeah, he's saying they're allowed to do athletics and stuff, so it would stand to reason. However, there had been some issues with like textbooks and whatnot, and so I don't know where that stands now. I've been out of the schools for a couple of years.
I'd like to remind everybody that this is going to be bragging rights for our residents. We have company all the time from all over, and first thing they want to do is go down to the river. It's a scenic place to go, even when it's not, the doors are locked. Everybody wants to look in and see if they can get in, but just being there, it just gives you a thrill that we have a piece of property like that on the river.
The comment is regarding friends from out of town visiting Comanche and asking to go see the river and ending up at the library with that scenic view and wanting to go into the library and just see how that is from inside. But also, if I might add to that, now I'm going to lose my thought. Oh, I have heard some ideas out there that maybe we should turn it into a restaurant, maybe we should sell it, maybe whatever. But that limits the people who can use the space. A library is there for its community and only for community. Having that property belong to the city is, it's beyond amazing. And if we grew up in Clinton, which I didn't, or Comanche, which I did not, but I raised my children here and they grew up there and they have in their hearts, and as do I, the library space as a part of their childhood, and it's a fond memory for them. I know that a lot of Comanche residents feel that way about that library. When the basement became unusable and we had to bring the stuff for the children's area up, it hurt a lot of hearts, but it had to happen. If they had not done the expansion they did in 1996, that would have put an enormous pinch on the space provided for the citizens of this town. So the fact that they had the forethought back in those days to expand the space, to allow growth, to bring people in, to have the materials that people needed and wanted at their disposal was a godsend, because the truth of the matter is we need it now more than ever because we can't use that basement. Now, if we're going to be good stewards of that building and the memories that our children and their children will have of going to the library, it requires a lot of updates to begin with, but the expansion is where those memories are going to be built. When they go and tell their friends about their library and their hometown and all those things, that's going to be in their hearts. And I'm all about that. I might not realize, I might not be around to realize the use of this space in the way that it can possibly grow into in the future, but our children can, and that's important.
I want to talk.
Corporations coming in and interviewing people, what a sales pitch they can.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Say that.
There's-
Businesses
and
people wanting to move here.
People want to talk about Comanche being a bedroom community, and I agree, although there are things we should be doing, like having a grocery store in our community. But part of people wanting to live here is having access to those amenities, like a good public library. And when you talk about the size of this library, we're a Class D library, and the state of Iowa classifies libraries based on population and square footage. We are 13th from the bottom of, I think, about 45 or 50 Class D libraries in the state of Iowa. We're about 13th from the bottom in square footage. The next step up is a Class E library at 5,000 in population, so we're less than 500 people away. If we have any growth over the next 10 years and we get to 5,000 and we become a Class E library, without an expansion, we will be the smallest Class E library in the state of Iowa.
Yes, the library. I think what I hear is funding for the library.
Right.
And so I think people need to know that, for instance, living on the side of town that I do, where the streets are not in very good shape. There's no sidewalks in a lot of the areas. The streets are, is this gonna do anything to the ability to put curb and gutter and sidewalks and, and to upgrade things that people use every day?
I can speak to some of that.
What he said.
Yeah, so he's talking about, does this funding of the library take away from any of the street work that can be done, or adding sidewalks or curb and gutter or anything like that to the side of Comanche on the other side, on the river side of the tracks? And I'll say this, if I've learned one thing about sidewalks and putting them in front of people's houses, the first thing they do is say, now I gotta shovel it. Yeah. And they don't want that necessarily. And I'll say this too, we have a street improvement plan. There's a lot of stuff coming over there to that side. We're looking at First Street right now. We may have to do something different with a complete replacement of that. Once this project is done, we have the plan to completely reduce Second Street from one end to the other. We've done quite a bit of work over on that side of town, 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, parts of 6th Avenue.
So that can go on without.
That continues to go on. That's mostly paid for with road use tax funding, which wouldn't be funding this project. Now, we can't, but we can borrow against property taxes and get some work done. That's not the preferred way to do it, because we do have road use tax funding coming in from the state, and that comes from a tax paid at the gas pump, at every gas pump to the state of Iowa, and it's distributed to cities based on population and linear mileage of street that you're responsible to take care of. Right now, Comanche gets about $670,000 a year, maybe $700,000 a year in road use tax funding. And we use that for buying salt, equipment, paying employees, maintaining the garages, and doing asphalt projects. I think since I've been here, the one project that we have coming off property taxes right now outside of Washington Boulevard is the 9th Street work that was done, because that was a $2 million project. And that would just suck up all of your road use tax funds, and you wouldn't be doing anything for the next 15 years or 20 years. So we put that on the tax levy. And that was all part of the capital improvement plan too. So we will continue to move along with the street improvement plan, and that's on our website. You can look at it and see what's coming up next. But the idea is our goal is to get about 75% of the streets touched, either maintained with crack sealing, or even if we have to tar and chip, that's fine, or resurfacing within the next 15 years. And we've done a significant amount. I think if you look at the map, you'll see there's been a lot of streets done. There you go. There's my 2 cents.
Okay, let's go ahead and let's fast forward to, we never finished this slide, so let's hit
Did
the
not.
rough schedule. We have a referendum vote this fall. Per the new Iowa law, votes of this nature are included in the city election, and nowhere else, no special elections are allowed.
I want to point this out too. It's important because this referendum vote in 2025 would allow us to start setting the budget for fiscal year 2027, which begins in July of 2026. And we budget for that in December, January, February, and March of 2025 going into 2026. So beginning in December of this year, we would have to start budgeting to set the levy so that as the Washington Boulevard debt falls off, the levy stays the same. We bring in the money to make that debt payment. Otherwise, the levy is going to drop by $1.50. And once you do that, you're never getting it back. My opinion.
Yep. So you see, then assuming we get the vote, then optimistically, we can start the bid process in April of 26. construction starting in July of 26, and the library would open as in its expanded state in August of 27. So, and one thing I want to point out too, because some people get, well, what decides whether we do a 1-story or 2-story? And that's going to be the donations. Right? It's up to us on the committee to go out and knock on the doors and hit the stumps there and get on the campaign to try and get those commitments from the corporations and the private donors. So we can now tell the voters when November comes and the ballot's coming up, we say, we already have a commitment for this much money from these generous donors. So we want, and then we're asking the voters, keep your tax levy the same. Whoop, that's mine.
That's it. He's in trouble.
I'm in trouble now.
That's a party foul. You got to put $1 in the
Right.
jar every time your phone
I've done
goes
that.
off. You know, in the real world, they say when you go to a meeting, the first thing you do is you put your phone on silent. Well, nobody calls you. That's okay. No, I've been researching this project now for 2 years, and God bless my wife. She goes with me on all these journeys into libraries. And my mother-in-law is a retired children's librarian for the state of New Mexico, so we have some attachment to it. But everywhere I go, every library I've seen where they've got a community room, it is sponsored by some bank. It is sponsored by some company. They have their name right on the front door. And it didn't cost them $1,000 to do that. It probably cost them $500,000 to do that. And you give them naming rights to that room for 40 or 50 years. You want to name the children's wing of the library after that? You got to pay for that. And we will gladly accept that donation in your name. And you get to have your name up there and everybody gets to see who helped build this fantastic building. Who did that? It was those guys. Thank you so much.
What questions do you have? I know we've had a lot. Any more?
Well, the only question, or not a question, but when I've come to the meetings, the concerns have been about the levies. And the people that we have living in this community are a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes. We had somebody speak to that in the last council meeting.
Yes, we've had a question. We've had people talk about the levies, and at the last council meeting it was discussed, and that's true. And there are a lot of people in this community on fixed incomes, and we are very sensitive to that. I myself am on a fixed income. I'm retired, so.
I can afford to do that, but
Right.
there's a lot of people that can't.
I know some people their fixed income is a lot lower than mine. I know that.
And I'll say something too. Yeah, we do that. We do talk about that all the time about the median age of people in Comanche. That's going to be a paradigm shift. And I think that's going to happen in the next 10 years. You're going to start seeing a lot younger people needing to move into this community. Somebody's got to fill those. When older people move out, either they go into assisted living or, as nature has it, they pass away, their house comes on the market. Younger families are going to want to come here, especially when you start providing amenities like a nice library, like a splash pad, like renovated parks, like a fairway, and giving people the opportunity to actually live and play and do things in their community without having to go to someone else's community to do those things. You will attract a younger crowd here, and that younger crowd comes with kids. And it's important that you bring those people into this community, because when they bring kids here or live here and have kids, they end up in the school. And when they end up in the school gets more funding from the state if they bless us with the money. But you get that happening. And the more kids you have in a school, the lower you can bring down the levy to be able to afford that. It's the same thing with taxes too. We need to grow this community. You need more properties to pay taxes. Instead of raising the tax rate on people, you have to grow the tax base. You need growth. You need more houses to bring in. And if we're not doing that, I said this earlier today in a meeting, you stagnate. If you stagnate, think of it like a pond. What happens to a pond in your backyard if you let it stagnate, you don't aerate it, you don't treat it, you don't take care of it? It becomes a little swamp and then it quickly dies. You can't have that in your community. You have to care for it and you have to move it forward. And for us, that's going to mean expansion, bringing things here that attract people to want to live here, especially younger people. We need that to happen.
I was thinking of the corporations again, all the interviewing that they do to get people to Clinton and Comanche, I hope is in the forefront of their thoughts, real estate agents and to know that this is going.
Yeah, right now in places like Merrill Steel is hiring, then all these companies are growing around here and they have to go elsewhere to conduct interviews and things like that. They use the Grow Clinton offices downtown. Why don't we have a space here they can use that has the technology, that is a nice environment, that has adequate access, uh, and showcases what our community is? Why don't we have that? And it's because we've waited. We've waited and accepted, and now we've grown to the point where we need to look forward. We really do need to look forward. And Gail said it before, when you, if those folks back in the mid-90s didn't have the vision and courage to expand the library the way they did, we would have a real problem on our hands now. And I said this earlier today too, before Councilman Bowman arrived at the Leadership Academy for Grow Clinton. City Administrator Brooke from Clinton was talking about why cities borrow money and how you do things. And I raised my hand because I know the answer. And the answer is, it's never cheaper to do it than it is today. If you wait 10 years, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And by that time, you may realize that it's too late. And now it's really going to cost you. If you can see the vision and realize that you're going to need that at some point, that what you have is not going to be adequate, then you might as well do it now when you have the opportunity for the old debt to fall off, put the new debt on, don't raise the taxes, and move forward. And think about what those families 40 years from now will look back and say, yes, those folks back in 2025 and 2026 had the courage to say yes and make it happen. There you go. That's your inspirational speech for the day.
Okay.
Well, I've been in the area for 50 years, and First Clinton.
Mhm.
People live here. They don't.
They don't.
They live in the Quad Cities. And
Because that's where the amenities are.
politicians don't live here anymore.
That's correct. 100% correct. Yes, he's talking about the corporate leaders of the industries in this region don't live in this region anymore. They live down in the Quad Cities. And my comment to that is yes, because that's where the amenities are.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to think that this library is going to turn that around. But we're in an area with Clinton also, and you
Mhm.
know, Clinton doesn't have a growing.
Population.
Not growing.
Yep. Right. And
It's been
there's,
blighted for years, and it's still going.
he's talking about our neighbors to the north having blighted community, blighted areas and becoming a problem and not growing. You- if-
But I have some concerns about.
I think if you talk to people in the industry, you would hear them say, if you could build 100 houses right now, they would sell in Comanche. And there's definitely reasons why. And I'm not going to be here to say a library is going to solve your problems. It's not. There is no magic bullet. There is no one thing. It is a combination of pieces to the puzzle that you have to put together to make the puzzle happen. This is just a piece. Fairway is a piece. A splash pad is a piece. Improving your parks is a piece. Having a nice city hall and having good representation in this building to be a source of civic pride to say our city hall actually looks nice. And it's
Professional police force.
and
well-staffed,
and
fire
and you
department.
get down to public safety, which costs money, but we have a very safe community. I guarantee you 100% people look at crime rates for your community before they decide to move there. And you can look that up pretty easily. Comanche has one of the lowest crime rates around, and we have an excellent police department. And it takes funding to do that. I'll remind people that that's where a lot of your property taxes go, is police and fire, and some public work stuff, and a library. That's where your property taxes go. So if you're proud of having that, and you enjoy having a safe community, you have to be willing to pay for that.
I guess I would like to see more of the philanthropy, more. of the
Yes.
donation.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think that's,
We're starting to pound the pavement
and
on
less of the
that.
tax part.
Yeah.
And I think that would go a long way. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I mean, if the corporations that you're talking about want this area to grow,
Absolutely.
and I think that would
Yep.
be the thing to start with.
Part of our plan here in the next couple of months is to start pounding the pavement with some of these places to ask them to pledge. You don't have to write me a check today. Just pledge. And here are the options. These are what you can pledge. And, I'm happy to have, if you want to sell bricks in the patio at $150, that's great too. But you need to sell a lot of bricks. I would much rather take the opportunity to provide major donors a seat at the table and an opportunity to have their name recognized for a long time that they helped build this nice facility for the citizens of this community. Yep, philanthropy is so important. And again, I said it before, we haven't done a great job of encouraging that, and we haven't done a great job of making people feel confident that their money is going to be well spent on a project. So we need to change all that. There you go. What are you pointing at?
There's,
Oh, 5 people watching. Hey,
So we're actually
our
live.
live feed must be working, so
Hi,
great.
Okay,
everybody.
that's all
Okay,
I've got.
so I just would like to thank everybody for coming, and thank you for all the
Viewing
great
online.
questions and feedback, and thanks for seeing us from your screens at home. If you have not been to the library recently, please, please, please come down and see us, and you can see these plans in person. They're on boards right as you walk in into the space. But I'm sure if you don't know me yet, I'd be happy to get to know you. I'm excited about this and happy to be on the committee to make it happen for the citizens of Comanche. So thank you again.